Thanks a lot for having us, everybody. I'm President, Chief Creative Officer of Alphabet. We're a brand consulting firm working with clients in the not-for-profit association and largely destination marketing organizations in the National Capital Region and beyond. We've been around for about 20 plus years, and we've helped large and small associations like yourselves uncover their authentic brand story and hopefully help them drive positive change. I'm joined today by three industry executives from a variety of industry associations: Rod Gilbert, Megan Peckford, and Julia Doyle. Rod Gilbert is the Senior Vice President of Public Affairs and Procurement Practices at the Canadian Construction Association. That's not Rod, that's Megan, by the way. In his role at CCA, he leads internal and external communications, government relations, and membership management, with a mandate to inspire a progressive, innovative, and sustainable construction industry that consistently acts with integrity. Rod has over 21 years, both as a political advisor to several federal ministers, as well as a period working for Crown Corporation Investment Fund and his own government relation firm. Rod holds a degree in political science from Laval University. Welcome, Rod Gilbert, Canadian Construction Association.
Thank you, Tony.
You're welcome. Megan Peckford is the Director of Marketing at Ottawa Tourism. Ottawa Tourism is a not-for-profit member-based association organization with 4+ members representing accommodations, attractions, restaurants, outdoor experiences, festivals, entertainment that all work together to profile Ottawa and Canada's capital region as a diverse and exciting place to visit. Megan has been with the organization for 10 years, providing progressive marketing experience, planning and implementing marketing programs, forecasting and managing budgets, and tracking analytics. She's an enthusiastic marketer, continually striving to push the boundaries of traditional tourism marketing through innovative marketing approaches and data analysis, and most recently was heavily involved in the strategic development of Ottawa's new destination brand, positioning the capital as a hub of everything Canadian. And among her many qualifications, Megan holds a BCom from Memorial University in Newfoundland. Welcome, Megan Peckford, Ottawa Tourism. Thirdly, Julia Doyle is currently Director of Corporate and Public Affairs at Egg Farmers of Canada, formerly Director of Communications at the Canadian Real Estate Association. Julia is a multilingual, business savvy, and results-oriented executive-level communications leader with 20+ years of experience, delivering numerous data-driven strategic change in marketing and corporate communication initiatives across multiple business domains. Her specialties include strategic communications planning, brand development and marketing, member value communications, employee communications, and change management. And Julia holds a BA in International Business and Economics from the American University of Paris. Welcome, Julia.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks a lot for joining me today, you guys. We're talking about a topic that I'm particularly passionate about. I know you are too, and you've all been involved with it over the years and in various capacities. We're talking about brand storytelling and specifically how it can drive member acquisition and retention and general engagement and understanding of your organization. So as I've said, you've all gone through these projects and processes at various levels. And one of the questions I wanted to ask was, what was the strategic intent of that exercise? Like, what did you want to have as an organization by embarking on a major rebrand? We'll start with Rod Gilbert from CCA.
So thanks, Tony. A few years ago at the Canadian Construction Association, we've decided that it might be time to relook our the branding. And I'm nowhere to be like a marketing or a communication or like specialist. I'm coming from the government relation world. And I remember when we started this exercise and we asked ourselves the question, what we're trying to do here? And I think like CCA always had an excellent reputation as an association for their membership. Like we have like close to 20,000 members, very good for networking, attracting members, retaining, but all based on like client meeting, contractors, and possible like relationship. A few years back when I joined CCA, I got a mandate or really looking at becoming a really policy expert, like an association where the government at every level, federal, provincial, municipal, would come to ask advice on how to develop best policies in our world. So this is where we looked at looking at rebranding the industry. And often people think about the branding, about mostly the look and feel and like logos and colors, and this is not the world where I'm coming from. And I remember, like with Tony, we spent some time on that, but mostly it was about changing the perception of how government were looking at us. Our own members were looking at us in a way to engage with policy making decision, and how it would be easier to make it. And so we changed the tone, we changed the way to communicate with government and our membership, we changed the way to engage our members to communication to government. And this is what a strategy objective was behind all that work.
Great. So picking up on that, just moving on to Julia. So, in your former role at the Canadian Real Estate Association, because you're pretty new at the Egg Farmer, so I won't be unfair to you at digging on that. But your former role as Director of Comms at CREA, incredibly complicated industry, built organically over time, the real estate industry. It's actually industries within industries almost, and associations within associations. So what did the brand story mean to CREA at the time? Why was it important to change the perception of CREA as a singular entity? And how did that help, if you can answer, how did that help with your government relations and your member engagement and your general perception with your other association partners?
So back in 2011, when I joined, CREA was not actually allowed to directly communicate with their membership. It was all funneled through the provincial boards and associations. So as you can imagine, you're very distant from your membership in itself. And over the years, the organization had grown organically, but quite substantially, with Realtor.ca being sort of a separate brand there. But so the visual brand in itself was a mixed bag of whatever people had wanted to put in place for CREA itself, but then also for every single event or sub-product or new launched initiative that was out there. So I think when Tony and I actually looked at all of the brands, we were looking at 23 different logos that were in place. So we took the opportunity of the big change of being able to communicate with members directly, which we were allowed to start doing in 2012, to really revamp the brand as a whole. And that included, because it was the first time, the tone that we would use with our membership, the vision that we would convey, but it also included eliminating logo soup and developing a visual that was strategic, modern, forward-looking, and very clear as to what communication piece they were getting, from whom, and what we were doing for the membership as a whole.
Great, thanks. So we mentioned earlier on how complicated it can be at a national association level, the layers of membership, your provincial partners. I can see Rod and Julia kind of looking at each other going, oh yeah, that's the world that they live in. But tourism destination marketing is also an extremely complicated and politically charged place to work, I'm sure. Megan, you've just gone through a large rebrand of Ottawa as a destination brand. And I think the hope there is to impact economic development, the perception of Ottawa to its residents. I think it's a different approach to that, how that brand story is going to unfold. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, it's interesting because, I mean, we have a member-based organization. We have 400 plus members, but we're a whole city. And as a city destination, every communication piece that goes out from every institution has a reflection on the city and the way people view it. So our view on going into this process was we really wanted to punch above our weight. We weren't quite we weren't quite hitting the reputation that we wanted to in a global destination standpoint. And we were trying to figure out what's the problem there. Why is what's perceived about us not necessarily hitting that mark? So we embarked on this process in 2017 with the city of Ottawa. So we figured, it can't just be the tourism destination. It has to include the city. It has to be part of the resident voice. It has to be part of the way that we all speak about the destination. And I mean, ultimately, we're trying to drive business to our tourism businesses. And we really felt that we needed to embark on this as a strategic decision to figure out what does that city brand look like? What's our overall DNA look like? And that intrinsic value helps build our competitive identity. And that's beyond just bringing tourists to the city. That's also economic driver development, bringing business to the city.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, what we're talking about here is impacting some kind of positive change because it's a significant investment, right? It's a significant investment of time and resources, and you want to see something good happen from it, right? So, just going back to Julia, what would you say? Would you have been any measure or performance indicators of success from a rebrand of CREA as an organization experience? Have people acted differently inside the organization, and then your partners acted different towards you because of a new, more well-articulated brand value story?
I think one huge part is that the organization itself and the people dealing directly with any kind of brand-related communication or marketing activities now finally had something that they could lean on, refer to, and also defend. So in the past, when somebody came and said, well, I want pink or green or whatever, it was like, well, there's no clear guidelines as to what to reach. So who am I to tell you, no, you can't do that? So we have a lot more power now to really clearly define where we're going, why we're doing this. And I think that really helped the employees that work on that, but it also helped on defining campaigns, defining communication pieces, and really, if you look over the time period, really defining it as one source of where this piece is coming from. And we did do an audit after the fact, 5 years later, and it did show the really positive effects of the work that we had done. So we were happy that the investment and the time that was put into it really showed, also from an external point of view, a positive effect as well.
Excellent. And Rod, so, again, the construction industry means many different things, and you're trying to articulate the breadth of what it means to both the general public and to government, and the diversity that already exists within the construction industry. So how has a more crystallized, well-articulated brand platform helped you have those conversations from a policy influencing or a government relations point of view?
Yeah, I think the exercise brought all these different people together, some local people and everywhere in Canada were able to look at themselves as being part of something and really being part of a movement, to be advocating for government. And funny enough, Tony, I would like to say that COVID for us was probably what we needed to prove that that exercise that we did the 2 years prior to the crisis really worked. We not only we did not lose any members, we grew over that year and a half. We were able to influence government on many policy position, different program that they put in place. And just remember, the industry, because government were trusting us to keep working during that crisis, and to be probably the biggest part of the recovery to come. And all this started a few years back when we worked on the rebrand, and I think that's part of it. And for us, it's the best judgment.
Good. Now, I wrote down, I just noticed a piece of data from David Coletto's presentation earlier on, that getting through to decision makers was the #1 challenge in advocacy. And then you could leverage your, personal network or your business network to try and get through to those decision makers. However, Julia, would you say that the collective of 130,000 realtors is a fairly big lobby in terms of getting noticed from decision makers and the creation of pack days and all of those things? And I know you weren't involved on the GR side, but is that the notion of a singular entity of Canadian real estate, organized Canadian real estate, and a brand around that, was that helpful in rallying those troops, do you think?
I'm sure it has, because I'm now comparing it to a membership of 1,200 members, where the brands now become a brand of collaborating with other like-minded, in this case, supply managed groups, and to get the numbers up, there's that sort of collaboration. So yes, CREA definitely had that brand story to tell, definitely had a value proposition to talk about. It was expressed in a visual logo, the way we wrote a style guide, all kinds of pieces on how we communicated with our membership. And that for sure was very helpful.
Excellent. Okay. So moving on to so we've talked about the strategic intent, what you wanted to achieve from it, a little bit of success stories in terms of how that brand platform and story has helped. But Megan, I know that you are particularly interested in qualitative and quantitative measurement frameworks. That's kind of one of your passions. So how the work is impacting actual change. So in terms of what you've seen, it's pretty new. I understand you're brand new and you haven't really rolled it out. But what kind of measures will you be looking for from a qualitative and quantitative standpoint to see how that new brand is impacting change in your community?
Yeah, I mean, we did a lot of research on the forefront of it, trying to build the basis that we would build the brand from. So, I mean, we surveyed like 1,400 citizens. There was input from community leaders. We analyzed like 7 million online conversations and social media and organizational channels that were putting information out about Ottawa locally. So all of that formed a bit of a base of where we stand from a reputation measurement perspective. And that's kind of what builds the base of, or what will build the base of how well the brand does in the external market. So are we actually able to move the needle on our reputation? Are we able to impact it and move it up? So we do a lot of measuring like the net promoter score of the destination, tourism sentiment index, resident sentiment index. Residents are a big part of that, because if there's no buy-in from not just our business stakeholders, but the people of Ottawa who form this destination, then there's no alignment in what we're actually trying to do. So that's a big part of measuring how well the brand does. Excellent. And also adoption by the larger community, because we need everyone to be telling the same story with the same brand voice in order to get the perceived to line up with the actual what we are. So adoption by our community is also really important.
Yeah, that's a big challenge in destination marketing. I mean, you actually don't do where the rubber hits the road of a visitor experience, right? You just either fund it or promote the overall destination. But if somebody walks into a restaurant or an attraction or a cafe or a hotel, they need to have a certain sort of a feeling that this place, of what you're trying to imbue in this place. So, I mean, how do you even get that through to these independent businesses that are actually holding the banner of your brand from an experience point of view? How do you even do that?
Yeah, it's tricky. I mean, and it's ongoing. That certainly won't stop. We started the process in 2017. We probably finalized the place DNA, or the sort of the brand story by 2019, 2020. And then we went into the visual brand process that we launched the new brand identity in June. But certainly it's ongoing. We held workshops after the brand identity was created. We have a brand storybook created, that one that focuses on business and investment, one that focuses on tourism businesses, and one that's on student and resident. So all of that is trying to get that information out there. And a big part of that is working with the city of Ottawa and trying to continue that messaging into the community, and doing local branding as well as external branding. Previously, we would never have done anything in the city. All of our dollars were spent outside the city. And now we're recognizing that because that community part is so important, and that our local businesses are so important to the overall identity that we project, we're making it a bigger part of what we do internally.
Okay. You mentioned two specific little measures there that maybe some people might not know of. So you mentioned the Net Promoter Score, the NPS, and then also some sentiment analysis. So they're both sentiment kind of related, but can you just explain what a Net Promoter Score is to the attendees, and then
Yeah,
how you would do sentiment analysis as well?
I hope I get this right. My business analyst will be super mad if I get it wrong. So the Net Promoter Score is, it takes the overall positive and it takes away the overall negative, or the neutral people, and it gives you a balance. So basically, you have promoters who are scoring something for like 8 and 9. You have a neutral score, which is, I think, 5, 6, 7, around there. And then you have detractors. So people who are actually actively saying negative things about your business, your organization, your city. So it's a measurement of the positive minus the negative, and you net out in the middle, or wherever you net out. So we're always aiming to increase our Net Promoter Score. We do a survey at the airport, and it's basically a simple question of, would you recommend Ottawa as a place to visit? So it's about recommending and word of mouth, and it's trying to give you a quantitative measurement of a very touchy-feely subject, a word of mouth. How do you measure whether or not people will actually promote that? And then sentiment index is also measured by the number of conversations that are happening out there. So is the overall sentiment positive or negative? And can you grow that positivity?
Okay, thanks. Moving on. So Rod, I know you just mentioned earlier on, like, it's funny you said, oh, I'm not a marketing guy, I'm not a communications guy. I'm like, no, you are. I know you are, because I've worked with you, and you definitely are. So you just don't think you are. You don't call yourself that. But do you think that every organization, you've worked in all kinds of different organizations on the federal government side, on the consulting side, do you think that every organization has the ability to develop an actual brand narrative that means something, a powerful brand story? Do you think that's true?
Yeah, I think they do. And not only I think they do, I think they have to. I think in every organization, small, medium, large, at every level, I think they have capacity. I think they have to do it in order to survive. I think it's definitely one of, like, if you moved into a new organization and they don't have it, I think that should be the first order of business, like to making sure that you have that rationale behind what you're trying to achieve as an organization. And I think that's the key.
That's interesting. I thought it was interesting on David Kiletto's research too, that only 6% of industry executives thought that marketing was important. I think that was the data point I saw, and I was thinking, oh well, how are you communicating to your stakeholder base in that case? I could have gotten that wrong, but maybe
that's heartbreaking, but maybe that's just because I'm a marketer.
Yeah, maybe. Just going back to Julia, you've been doing this for a long time. You've been in marketing comms for a long time. You've done a lot of brand projects and brand process and rebrands. What are some of the do's and don'ts? Like, I mean, there's pitfalls, because everyone starts with wild excitement into these projects, right? And then they realize this is really complicated and hard, and it's going to take a long time. So what are some of the pitfalls that you've observed, and what are some of the absolute must-dos that you've seen over your time?
I think some of the pitfalls is trying to please everyone, particularly on the visual side of things. We all have different tastes. We all like green or red or whatever, and that doesn't really matter when it comes down to the end product. So I think it is key that you seek out a collaborative approach without trying to have everybody's input taken in at the same face value, or that they, it should be sort of a listening thing as, okay, Tony, I hear you. I see where you're coming from. Now let's see what Megan has to say and sort of bring that in. And one thing I really think that helps is to back up your work with, if you can afford it, because it is a more costly approach, is to back up your work and your proposals with focus groups, people that are outside of the organization, people that have no biases, that, and that will really give you a leg to stand on when you need to defend the proposed brand, the visuals, the direction to your executive, to your board, and those that in the end need to sign off on the full thing. So it's sort of invite people in on the conversation, but then also rely on external data and research and focus groups to support the final decisions that are going to be put forward.
So a consultative and collaborative process. So everyone's voice gets heard, but not everybody's opinion gets acted upon, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay. So Megan, I can't even imagine how complicated that was in your in your world. Lots of loud voices with big opinions, right?
Yep. To say the least.
Some of them might be here, so you have to be careful what you say. So, I mean, what were some of the absolute must-haves that you think to do, and what were some of the pitfalls that you've observed through the course of that quite protracted, very deep and research-driven process?
Yeah, I think collaboration is a good point that Julia made, and I think that it's involvement. We needed to make sure that we had involved enough stakeholders that we could back it up with common themes that had come out of everything that we had done, so that you aren't just you're really saying who you are and not what you want to be. And that's a common pitfall, I think, in people going through a branding process. They want to project something, but it's not really based in the authentic self that they're projecting. And I think that you have to have everybody on board with a strategic objective, the why you're doing it. Because if you don't really have a reason to go through this process, if there's not an end goal that you can state, it's not really understood why you would spend this time and this effort and this money. And people just think that it's, a logo, like our logo is fine, we don't need to change it. But it's not about that. It's about so much more than that when you're trying to really boil down to what's the importance and the essence of our brand.
Excellent. Okay, we're coming towards the end. I'm going to leave the last word to Rod, because I know Rod likes having the last word in all these conversations. So what would be the one piece of advice you'd give to an organization executive considering a rebrand?
You need the buy-in from all your members. And when I say the buy-in, I would say, like, we can disagree with the process. We can disagree with the message. We can't even disagree with the intent of everything we're doing. But when we leave the meeting room and it's done, everyone around the table should say and send the same message. I think that's the key to the like being successful.
That's excellent. Okay, thanks. Well, we have reached the end of our panel discussion today. I'd like to thank Rod Gilbert from Canadian Construction Association, Megan Peckford, Director of Marketing, Ottawa Tourism, and Julia Doyle, who's Director of, I'm going to get your title wrong, Public Affairs and Marketing at Egg Farmers. Is that right? Sorry, Julia.
Almost.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Thanks so much for your time. And I guess you guys can turn off your cameras and leave the green room now. Thanks a lot.
Thanks for having us.
Okay. One last little thing from me. Thanks. Sorry about that. One last thing from me. I hope you got some value out of our conversation with Rod, Megan, and Julia today. As you go back to your table discussion, I want you to think about this. So we talk about not creating or inventing a brand story. We talk about uncovering your brand story. So if you think about uncovering the truth about what it is you represent and the value that you bring, think about your brand story needing to be true. It needs to be believable, but it really needs to have an emotional connection with people, because that's how they make decisions. And that decision is whether to stay or join your association. So what are the 3 key issues that drive engagement with your members? What do they really, really care about? And then how do you create a narrative built around those 3 key issues that speaks to a higher purpose? So it could be a venue for belonging, part of an industry association, showing passion for the industry sector that you're in. So not really exactly what it is you do, but why you're doing it and how you represent the collective for the common good. So if you think about that, you're going to have the foundation of a really good brand story that's going to be universally appealing to all of your stakeholders. That's it for me. I'm Tony Lyons, President Chief Creative Officer of Alphabet. Thanks for listening, and have a great day.